Hey guys, my name is Heather Lindsey.
And my name is Cornelius Lindsey.
And I'm so excited that you landed on Life with the Lindseys.
This is so exciting. This gives us an opportunity to share our life with yours.
Yes, we're going to be talking about everything from entrepreneurship to ministry to your purpose to why you are here, family, parenting, relationships, marriage, sex, you name it. We are talking about it.
So thank you so much for joining us today with Life with the Lindseys. Enjoy it. Hey, everybody, this is Cornelius Lindsey.
Hey, y'all, this is Heather.
And welcome to another episode of Life with the Lindseys. Today, we're talking single and unsatisfied.
No way. I was the most satisfied single ever. Just kidding.
Says nobody ever.
Says nobody ever, right? So I struggled with my singleness for most of my life, if I could just keep it real. I did not know who Jesus was until I turned 20 years old. And up until that point, and even a few years after that point, I continued in dysfunctional, unhealthy relationships. I was searching just to kind of fill my God voids with men. Let me just keep it real. And so when I was single, I was not living my best life. I would go on dates with guys because I thought they were cute, not because they had substance or anything else about them. And I just didn't know what I really wanted in a person. And I remember like meeting guys and the Holy Spirit telling me as I shook their hand, this one is not it. Let it go. And I would get so frustrated because I felt like, God, you want me to be single my whole entire life. Like, I'm so sick of it. I don't want to be single my whole life. I want to be married. I had an idea of marriage at the age of 25. I'm going to have 2.5 kids, 2 kids and pregnant with my third. And I'll have this handsome husband and I'll, be
honest. You got that.
I know, right? And I'm going to do my thing and live my best life with my little family. And then in my 30s, I'm going to be really focusing on getting snapback and be super cute, done having kids. No, that didn't happen. I ended up meeting my husband at 27 or at 26, got married at 27, first kid at 30. So it's so interesting how you can have a certain way of how you think your life is going to be. And then God comes in and his timing is perfect.
And the crazy thing is, I had an idea what my marriage is going to be. And I thought I was never going to be married because
you thought you were going to have the spirit of what?
Must we say it again? The spirit of hoe. That's what I thought I was going to have. Okay. I thought I was going to have the spirit of hoe. And what that means is I thought I was just going to be just kind of going around sleeping with people. But whatever. I didn't think I was going to be married. Set free. I did not think that I was going to, be with anybody. I thought that I wanted to have kids, which was crazy. Yeah. So I wanted to adopt kids. In fact, when we met, I was talking about adoption. And then I put that on hold because you were like, hey, let's have kids, which makes sense. So we have kids and let's do it the right way. But let's do it that way, not the right way, because adopting is definitely also the right way. But so we wanted to have kids. But it's not that I didn't want to be married. I just didn't think that I was going to ever be married. I really had no hope in marriage. So I didn't care anything about marriage. Just like, okay, I really want to be married. You see what I'm saying? And the girl who I was dating, I was willing to marry her only because I was comfortable with her. And I was comfortable with her mama and her grandfather and her grandmother. I knew her family. Her family knew me and we liked each other. She knew my family and my family, they cared about her. And so, I was like, hey, we can do this because it's comfortable. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of singles get married for that reason. They get married to somebody because they're comfortable and they're convenient, not because there's definitely purpose there. So when I was single, I don't necessarily say I was dissatisfied. I was just like, I don't really know what I was. I was messed up is probably a best place to put it.
I feel like sometimes people are single and they're not satisfied, and then they get married and they marry their dysfunction. They marry a person that they see in the middle of their mess. And so then 10 years later, you're like, oh, we grew apart and we're just different. No, let's get to the root issue. And that's what I really want to focus on right now with my singles. What is going on in your heart now in your life? What happened to you as a child? Now, you've got to understand that if you're struggling with childhood trauma or different things that are happening to you, you're going to carry that into your marriage. And whatever you're not dealing with is going to be amplified 100 times over. So for me, for example, I struggled with rejection and abandonment. I was adopted at the age of 6 months old, and I had some childhood trauma before that, the first 6 months of my life. Pretty much what happened was I got adopted straight from the hospital, or I got given up as an orphan right from the hospital. And my foster family did not believe in fat babies, so they fed me 3 bottles, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, a day and that's it. And I stayed in a room by myself, swaddled, where I screamed for the entire day. And so that's how my life started out. My basic needs were not being met as a child. And so as I grew older, I began to look at relationships, friendships as well, through the eyes of rejection. So anytime anybody hurt me or whatever the case was, I'm looking at it through the eyes of rejection. So then, of course, when I would meet guys and they would hurt me, I would quickly break up with them because I felt like, you know what, let me break up with you or use you or manipulate you before you try to hurt me. It was a defense mechanism that I would put up in my relationships. And so that was my thing. I would go from relationship to relationship. And it's like I would practice divorce. I would want to piece the guys together. Like I'll take his personality, his job, his money, his looks, and just make one person. And I could not find one that had everything that I wanted. Of course, until I met you, baby.
That's a lot.
It is.
But I mean, you know, is that a woman thing? Can I ask? Is that a wrong question to ask? Is that a chauvinist question to ask? Is that a woman thing?
I believe that sometimes women have unrealistic expectations. We have the fairy tale mindset of what a marriage or a man should be. He should be our hero. He needs to be this, be affectionate. We have all these expectations of what a man needs to be.
So when a man, and the reason why I asked you that question is because when I sit down and I talk with a lot of my guy friends, it's almost like we feel the pressure that comes along with all of these different expectations, you know, like, you know, not only we need to build a house, we need to take care of everything in the house. We need to bring in all the bacon for the house. And, you know, but then it's like, you know, we can't really ask you all to cook in the house because then that's old fashioned.
Wait, no, it's not. I cook in the house.
I mean, you do, but I'm saying, the world is a lot different outside of our house. You know, it's just when I sit down and talk with single guys now, it's almost like, you know, you got to build a house, you got to do this to the house. And then it's like, well, then some women will say, well, I don't really need you in order to build my own house. I can build my own house, but then it's like, you know, it's all convoluted. Yeah. So I guess the reason why I asked you the question, because I hear it a lot. I hear that a lot about different expectations and having these expectations. I think in just having the opportunity to sit down and ask you, hey, is this something that a lot of women do? They have these expectations that before they get married, they're looking for this perfect guy.
Yeah.
And this guy needs to have it all together.
100%. He
needs to have the right job. He needs to have the right this. It's like, I will not marry you unless your finances are in order, which, you know, I'm a proponent of not marrying somebody for their potential, so to speak. I believe that you marry somebody based upon their patterns. So just because you may not have $1 million in the bank right now, if this man has a good pattern with finances, then that usually is a good indication that later on his patterns is going to help him to be financially stable. Yeah. And you can build something together. But is there more you can expound on that and having this idea in your head that I can have this perfect example? And here's the other thing. So I want you to expound on that, building this perfect man. And then I also want you to expound on the fact that I'm building this perfect man, but what if I don't get him? At some point, am I aggravated with the man that I got that is not perfect?
Yeah. I actually preached a sermon on that a couple of weeks ago titled Build a Man.
Oh,
like Build-A-Bear, women think they can go in and they can just choose how he's going to look and his job and all this other stuff, and it's going to be great. Build-A-Man does not exist. We've got to let that go. And I actually had expectations of what I wanted in a husband. And I remember the Holy Spirit telling me, Heather, you need to throw your list away. I once heard this story where a woman walked into this 4 or 5 story building. She didn't know how big it was. She walked in on the first floor. It says, this man, if you marry this man, he's going to have a great job and love Jesus. And then she saw a sign said, if you go up to the next level, there's going to be a different type of man. So she went up to the next level. But on the second floor, the man loved Jesus, had a great job. He was over 6 feet. He was fine. and hold on. And he likes kids. Okay. That's the second level. So then she saw a sign and said, oh, wow, there's a better man upstairs. So she went up those stairs. That man had everything that the first 2 floors had. Plus he was making over 6 figures and he owned multiple businesses. Then she saw a sign that said, there's another man upstairs. So she said, oh, there's a man better than all this. So she let that man go and went up the stairs. She got up there and saw a sign that said, you will never be satisfied.
Come on.
Yeah, she did. So let me tell you. And I do believe that as women, sometimes we have these huge, grand expectations because we're always comparing men to other men of how we think that they should be. It's not fair. Even now, people say, oh, Heather, you're so blessed to have a husband like Cornelius. Cornelius was not Cornelius 10 years ago. We have developed and we have grown and we have passed a lot of tests to get to where we are. Both of us have. Yeah. I have as well, you know?
So let me, okay. So cause you mentioned something about going up this elevator because and I think it's so important. You mentioned, I think it was on the second or third floor. This man was over 6 feet. Mm-hmm. So when us guys, we get together, you know, we live in a pretty volatile society now where it's very PG, you know, everybody's offended about every little thing. Yeah. And one of the things that I notice is that when a man says, I prefer to have a woman who looks like this, then it's like, you know, the women who don't look like that will all jump on him and say, you're wrong, you're this, you're that.
No, you need to be specific. Tell me what happened.
You know, it's like, okay. Well, like, you know, if a man says, I want a woman that has straight hair or not natural hair. And then the women will say, although natural women will say, this man is wrong. He shouldn't like this and he shouldn't like that. Or if a man says, I'd rather have a light-skinned woman and not necessarily dark-skinned, or I'd rather have a dark-skinned woman, not necessarily light-skinned. Then all the dark-skinned sisters are like, well, why don't you like me? And it's like, well, all the light-skinned sisters are like, well, I feel insecure because you don't like me. But it almost seems okay when a woman says, I want a man who's 6 feet. He got to be 6 feet. If he ain't 6 feet, I don't want him. And you don't see brothers who are like, hey, what up though? What about the brothers who 5'5"? Like, why you coming out? Why can't I work for you? So it's like, it's almost like this double standard. Yeah. It's like women are able to give qualifications of what they like. Yeah. But then when a man says, well, this is what I like, women say, oh, but you don't have the right to have an opinion about what you like. Because you need to like this, because this is what it is. Like, I've had women come to me and it's like, you know, you must not like your mama because you don't like this, because your mama don't look like your wife. And I'm like, yo, number one, I said what I said. Number two, I didn't marry you. So why are you upset about me not liking you? I'll never find you attractive because I love my wife. Yeah. But it's like, you know, it's almost like this double standard that exists. Do you see that double standard? Do women see that? Do y'all talk about that? Because we as men, we talk about it.
So women don't talk about that because we think we're right.
I love it. Thank you.
No, I mean, we do. In our minds, it makes sense. The thing is, men aren't as vocal about it. Like, they might mention it, but let it die. For women, another woman will pick it up and run with it if one woman is frustrated about it and becomes this big thing. So I agree. I feel like every person should have their preference. If that person wants to marry somebody that's a different race than them, then hey, that's what they want to do. My concern is, have they made Jesus Lord of their life? Exactly. Because anything else can change. You know what I mean? Their hair, their whatever. Everything else can change. I remember when I was single, this guy came up to me and he was like, yeah, you too skinny. I couldn't marry you. I was like, excuse me? He's like, I like a woman with meat on her bones. And I was like, hey, if that's what you want, if that's whatever floats your boat, whoever God has for me is going to love my skinny tail. And we're going to be all right.
And I love your skinny tail.
Thank you,
but I think that we should be able, and when I say we, I mean that we as men and women, we should be able to explain to people who we desire. Yeah. The craziest thing is this. All the married couples that I know, their spouse was not on their list.
Yeah, you weren't on mine.
Yeah, I mean, and you weren't on mine. I didn't necessarily want anyone who looked like you.
Wait, look like me? What's wrong with the way I look?
Well, I'm just saying, in my head with my list, I had in my head like I had more of like a brown, darker skin that I wanted.
What's wrong with light skin?
See, here we go. Nothing's wrong with it. But I'm just saying, kidding. You know what I mean? In my head, I had a list of what I wanted, of what I liked. Yeah. And then it was like, I see you, and I'm like, you know what? God has just changed my entire life. Yeah. And he's kind of opened my eyes. It's like in Genesis when Adam was asleep. Yeah. And Adam's like, God's like, hey, boy, wake up. And it's like, oh, I'm up now. Yeah. And I see you. I open my eyes and I see you. So I just thought that was a very interesting point to bring up because that happens a lot. And us guys, we talk about it. We just don't get vocal about it because, I mean, let's be honest. Y'all are 80% of social media. So that's what y'all talk about mostly when men are on social media. It's like, trying to catch up with what LeBron James said about China or something. I don't know. But you know what I mean? It's like, that's what we care about.
Yeah. Women, we all rally together and just become a lot louder.
Oh,
together.
Yes. It's like 8 of y'all. But it sounds like 1,000. It's crazy.
That's about right. So when I was single, I remember finally deciding that I was going to enjoy my single life. I felt like for years I wasted it. I remember the Lord would always say, Isaiah 2:22, Heather, you're putting your trust in man and they are as frail as breath. So I just can't wait to share a little more of my single life in just a moment. Okay, so back to my single life. I just remember walking through the mall and the Lord telling me, Heather, are you going to let me blow your mind and let me choose who you're going to marry? And I told him, I don't know, Lord, if I could just be transparent, because I felt like God was going to make me marry somebody that I did not like and I was not attracted to.
Is that possible?
The thing is this, people ask me that a lot. Heather, do you believe in marrying somebody that you're not attracted to?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't think so. I think that a lot of people, if that's the case, then that means that God is just a God of bondage.
Yeah.
And I believe that if you're going to marry somebody, you need to marry them.
Be attracted.
Because you are attracted to them. You got to wake up to that person every day. And you don't wake up to somebody that look, turn over and the person's like a dump truck. Like you want to be able to, you know what I'm saying? Like you want to be able to roll over and be like, yo, yes.
Like how I want to climb over there.
I want to tap
right
this.
Now.
Yeah. You want to, right now, this is what we're doing in the middle of the podcast, talking about singles and dissatisfied.
Sorry.
You know what I'm talking about? But I'm just saying, like you want to make sure you're attracted to them. And God knows that we're visual creatures. He made us this way. Yeah, so I don't understand why anybody would assume that God would want you to be with this person who you assume to be an ugly duckling. Because if that person's ugly duckling to you, let them go, because somebody else may think that they're a swan.
Yeah.
That's tweetable. Tweet that.
Yes, let's tweet that. So I remember just saying, you know what, God, I am not doing a good job with picking. I'm not a good picker. So I'm not going to try to choose who my spouse is going to be. I'm going to stay focused on you. And I remember getting so content in my single life. I remember particularly on one, it was like December, Christmas time. And I've gone home, and actually our next podcast is going to be about dealing with in-laws and holidays and all that other good stuff. I know we're going to get into that next. But this particular trip, I remember coming home single, and my sister, who looked at me when I was just 26, and she said, Heather, your clock is ticking. Your clock is ticking. Where is your husband? And I said to her, I'm 26 years old. Do you want me to settle and have a bunch of kids by a bunch of baby daddies like you did?
Oh,
I did. That probably wasn't the most graceful thing to say to her. It was Debbie.
In your face.
Right.
In your face.
Right. And so with my sister, we had that joking relationship. So it was funny. It wasn't like any beef.
I love Debbie.
I know, we love Debbie.
She's like one of my favorites.
She's not going to listen to this, but she's amazing.
Debbie doesn't care either.
Yeah, Debbie doesn't care.
Debbie's like, whatever.
Exactly.
I love Debbie.
And so I told her, I'm not going to settle, and I'm going to decide to trust God, and I'm going to trust his timing. And I remember going back to my room and having quiet time with the Lord. And I said, God, if I need to be single the next 10 years, I will be satisfied with you alone, because you actually complete me. Yeah. I'm going to enjoy the season. And Paul calls family and marriage a distraction. And now I see why, because our whole life, think about it, babe, when we go home, you know what I mean? It's the kids, it's dinner time, it's school, it's this, it's that. It's meeting each other's needs. We don't have the ability just to be by ourselves. And if God's telling you to go to Dubai for a month, you ain't going to Dubai for a month because you got a whole wife and kid.
Why?
Because you have responsibility.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot.
That's right. So, but when you're single, you are free to do whatever God wants you to do, undistracted. So during my single season, I got really focused about serving the Lord. I was traveling. I joined 5 different ministries. I was serving. I was helping people. I was staying focused on what God wanted me to do. And I stopped dating around because I knew what I wanted in a guy. I did not need to date 50 men to see that. And I felt like it was a distraction. I was busy. I was in school. I had a lot going on. The last thing I needed to do was just go on dates with a bunch of different random men and waste my time. What do you think about that now?
Well, you know what? The crazy thing is about the whole dating random people. It's like, you can go out there, you can date 20 people.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're not going to come away thinking, okay, I can take some from all 20 people and I can kind of piece together the one person I'm going to be with for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
A lot of it becomes recreational. Yeah. Just like you were mentioning in one of our previous podcasts, it's like it becomes recreational. I'm not really doing this because I can really find somebody who I want to be with, because with all honesty, you probably don't want to be with any of the 20 that you're with.
Yeah.
I'm of that faith that it's almost like the first 20 minutes you can kind of tell whether or not this is or this isn't. It's like this type of confirmation. It just hits you like this is the potential.
Yeah,
this is the Holy Spirit. He's saying this is he's confirming this thing. In the first 20 minutes, you can kind of tell. Like I knew you were my wife in the first 15 minutes.
15 minutes, and we were like, "Yep, this is it."
doesn't mean that necessarily I thought, I didn't use the language, you are the one, because I think the only one that we need is Jesus Christ. Let's be honest.
Come on.
But it's not that you are the one. It's just that I knew within the first 15 minutes of the conversation, I could marry this woman, or I will marry this woman. That's just what I knew. So just recreationally dating, just kind of throwing it out there and just kind of trying to meet different people and all this kind of stuff. You're almost wasting more time.
Yeah.
I believe that the best way for a single to go about this whole dating thing is like this. If as a single person, you figure out what your purpose is.
Come on.
And what your vision is. Like when I talk to single men, the one thing I tell them first is one thing I ask them first is, what is your identity statement? And most men have not planted an identity statement. They don't know who they are.
That's good.
So you're trying to get into a relationship and then ultimately create a family, but you don't know who you are. I wrote a book entitled Success is Strategic. Now, I would encourage you to get it. Again, it's called Success is Strategic. And in that book, I actually write about the identity statement. And then the second question I asked them is, what is your vision statement? Because here's the thing. If you don't know where you're going, you can't take anybody else, and you're already at your destination.
Yeah.
So you need to know what your vision is. On our first date, we talk vision.
Oh, yeah.
We have to create a vision statement. 100%. And then it's like, okay, what is your mission statement? We do it for companies all the time. For a company, they have a vision statement and they have a mission statement. The vision statement is telling us, where we're going. The mission statement is telling me how I'm going to get there. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have in your head already how you're going to get there, what you're going to do to get to that, what you're going to do to get to that vision to accomplish it, then you don't know where you're going. So far too many families are being started without vision. Far too many families are trying to move forward, but they have no mission. So this is important so that we can, and instead of just saying, I'm just going to just date recreationally and find somebody who I want to be with and just get married. It's like, no, where are you going first? Figure that out first. And then when you get busy about doing what it is that God has shown you through vision and shown you in your mission, then that's when it's almost like, God kind of brings the two merging people together. Because this woman over here, she's doing what God's telling her to do. This man over here, he's doing what God tells him to do. And they meet. Notice, before Eve was given to Adam already had identity. God said, I made you in my image. Yeah. Adam already had placement. He said, I placed you in the garden.
He had a job.
He says, I put you here to cultivate the garden. Mm-hmm. So now Adam had identity, he had placement, he had a responsibility, and he also had something that's very important for a man. He had order. God said, listen, you can have any tree from the garden, you have any tree, but do not eat from this one. Because it's important for man to submit to someone who is higher than he is. If not, then he becomes his own God. And that is the most dangerous place for a man to be. So now when this man has to submit to God and say, I can do any of this but that, I'm in order. And I'm submitted. So now man has identity. He has placement. He has responsibility, and he has order. And then God says, it's not good for man to be alone. Let me give you some help, because you're going to need some help with identity. But you already got that in me. You're going to need some help with your placement. You're going to need some help with your activity and your responsibility. And you're going to need some help with your order. So let me give you a helpmeet.
Come on.
But most men don't need help because they're not doing anything.
You better preach.
Come on, somebody. I'm passing the offering the offering bucket around right now.
That's so good. I love that. And I love that right before I met you, maybe like 2 or 3 years before I met you, the Holy Spirit told me what I've been called to do. I asked the Lord on a regular basis. I'm like, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? Why am I here, God? And I remember him telling me that I've called you to preach the gospel of Jesus. Millions of people will come into the knowledge of who I am through the ministry that I will give you and your spouse. And to be honest, when I knew that began to give me like a gauge of what I have to expect in a spouse or what I should want in a spouse. So instead of, dating Tommy, Jimmy, whoever, all these other people, instead I knew that I have a new standard of what I need to look for in a spouse. I just can't marry anybody, and neither can you. You can't just marry anybody, because I want you to think about the generations after you that are waiting for you to make the right decision.
Come on.
I think about Logan and Taylor and Roman that would not be here if I did not make the decision to marry you. And now they have a godly father. They have a godly example of a man to look up to. They're not going to have a fatherlessness issue because you are present and you are active and you're in their face. Now, don't get me wrong. If your father and mother forsake you, God can take you up. So if you're a single mom, don't feel bad. If you're a single dad, don't feel bad because God can take them up. But granted, they still are going to have to deal with that void of that parent not being in their life. So if you're single, I want you to think about the generations after you that are waiting for you to make healthy, good decisions. It's so important. And so when I was single, when I met my now husband, I could tell him right away what God told me to do. But a couple guys before my husband that I remember going on a date with, I went on a date with this guy and he said, I asked him, what have you been called to do? And he gave me a weird look. He's like, I don't know. What have you been called to do? And so I told him, he said, oh no, you haven't been called to do that. He's like, you don't even know anybody in that area. Like you're first generation. There's no way you could be doing all the stuff that you're going to do. And then when I told my now husband what God has called me to do, he immediately said, oh yeah, you could do that. You should do that. You should rock out. And that's what I loved about you. You never tried to change who I was and what God called me to be. You didn't tell me, you didn't downplay it. You didn't say, oh, that's not what God called you to do. You supported it and you got behind that and you helped me to refine what God has called me to do. I remember when we were courting, I remember the Lord telling me, I remember just praying and saying, God, I want a man that will be an Ephesians 5 husband that will wash me with the water of the word. And what does that mean? Test me. That's pretty much how I view that scripture. And you can jump in. But I look at wash me with the water of the word is you would reveal the different areas that I need to work on while we were courting before we got married. Like, remember that time that I was having a rough week and I called you and I said, I'm having a rough week. We were just dating and I want to come down to Atlanta because I'm tired and I just need some encouragement. And you said, Heather, we have plans for you to come down next month, not this weekend. That's not what we're going to do. And I was like, first of all, I'm going to come to Atlanta because I want to, and you ain't my daddy and you ain't going to tell me what to do. And I remember you just saying, Heather, I am not going to let you fill your God voids with me.
I remember that.
And that stood out to me because you said, Heather, instead go spend time with God this weekend.
Yeah.
And I just shut everything down and I spent time with the Lord and you were washing me and I was getting closer to Jesus. So for those of you that are single and unsatisfied, the last thing you want to do is take that mindset into a relationship or take that mindset into a marriage.
Yeah.
If you have a desire to be married and you're praying to be married, then first I encourage you to practice contentment first before you get married.
Yeah. And you may be listening to that. You may be thinking, oh, here he goes again. I should be single and be content. Waiting does not mean boredom.
Come on.
That's not what it means. You could be fully active, doing what you love to do. Like, I meet people that are like, well, I'm single and I'm bored, but you love to bake. Like, if you love to bake some cookies and take them to a nursing home.
Come on.
I mean, you're single, but you love sports. Go out and start a mentoring program for boys or for little girls and make it free so that they don't have to pay for it. Make it so that single parents who can't afford to put their kids in summer camps could come to yours because you had the time to go and get a grant to start something. Like, you got to stop the idea that just because you're single, then that means that you have to be bored. Like, go and do something. Get off your behind and go figure out what to do. You got the time. I mean, a big thing, go and volunteer at your local church. Go serve at your church.
Come on.
Go serve at your church. You have time to do it. Like, you have the opportunity. Where married folk with kids are like, it's difficult for me to make choir practice. Why ain't you at choir practice? You should be at choir practice because you ain't got nothing else to do. You going to work. I mean, what are you going to do? You going to cancel an open table meeting? I mean, you have to find what it is that you're doing and move in that direction and stop always thinking that marriage is graduation for being single because it is not. Just because you're single, that is not a curse. Just move forward. But now we want to go into our next section, which is Q&A with the Lindseys.
The Lindseys.
Come on. Hey, we're back, and this is Ask the Lindseys. This is so important for us. We got some questions for you. So, Heather, I think you got the first question. What is it?
Yes. If you were ever in debt in your singleness, low credit scores, etc., how did you get out?
I was in debt.
I was in debt. And guess what? I brought my debt right on into my marriage.
Sure did.
Now, let me just keep it real. I feel like, again, people think that you're just going to all of a sudden arrive when you get married and you need to not have no debt. Now, hey, I encourage not having debt going into your marriage because your spouse has to take on that debt. Just keep it real. But at the same time, for us at that time, David Ramsey wasn't as popping. Like the tools they have now to get out of debt are amazing. The coaches they have, the help that they have, we just didn't have that back then. And we were just broke, if we just keep it real. I mean, we were just living really paycheck to paycheck.
We had faith.
We had faith, but we ain't had no money.
We had no money.
But our wedding was debt free. Amen. We wanted that. But when we got married, it was literally taking our money and budgeting it and deciding that we're going to be wise and do better with our money. Now, one thing we did do is we printed out our credit reports and we showed it to one another so we could both see how much debt we had. And then it wasn't until we got married where we got debt free.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got a question, babe?
No. You have another one? Go ahead.
You got to look too, baby.
Okay.
All right. How do you cope with long distance and staying patient in the waiting to be a wife? Because we were long distance.
How do you cope with what?
With a long distance relationship and being patient because she wants to be a wife.
Oh, well, I mean, we were long distance for what?
A year and 7 months.
A year and 7 months.
Yep.
And that is difficult. I think that every situation is different. And, if you believe that this is the man that you're going to marry, I'm assuming the writer, the question is a woman, right? If she believes that this is the man she's going to marry, then she is willing to be patient enough to wait for him. I mean, it's almost like if this is going to be it, then you're going to have to tell your emotions to calm down and be ready when that time comes. I
think the thing is, and maybe she might be struggling with this, is she doesn't know when they're going to get married. And there might be a communication issue. For example, with me and my husband, I asked, we had a conversation. He said, I said, how long do you think it'll be before we'll get engaged? And he said, within 1 year. So because I had an expectation of what it was going to be, and I trusted that expectation, 360 days, you proposed to me. Mm-hmm. It's because you gave me that year before we're going to get married. I knew that I had something to look forward to. In her shoes, what if they've been together for 2 or 3 years and he still has not proposed to her? What do you think about that? Like long engagements or long relationships where it's like, been together 5 years and he's still not talking about marriage. I think that pretty soon that turns into manipulation. Yeah. I'm being very cautious in saying that because every situation is different. Don't take this as a blanket statement. Yeah. But in some situations it becomes manipulation. It's like, well, if I can rope you along for the next stage, it's almost like dangling a carrot in front of a horse. I know you want to be married, so since I may not marry you, but I'll propose to you. And then I'll just stay proposed to you. I'll just kind of be proposed to you for, 8 years. It was like, my favorite TV show is The Office. And, and for the longest time, Pam was engaged to Roy. And the running joke in The Office was that, she won a Dundie because of it. It's like the winner of the longest engagement was Pam. She always got it over and over again. And then her response in one of them was Roy. He went up to her and he said, you know what, we'll be back next year. And it's almost like he just kept rowing her along. And the whole time, everybody who's watching the show is like, I just want Pam to be with Jim. Like, could you please make this happen? But Pam could never be with Jim because Roy was always sitting in the seat. And at some point, Pam had to say, enough is enough. Roy, if you won't marry me, then this is it. And let me open up and free up the seat for the man who will. And soon enough, if you watch the show, The Office, I'm not giving any spoilers. If you haven't watched it by now, then I don't understand. But soon enough, Jim and Pam, they get married, they have kids, and they live a great marriage. So this is pretty soon it turns into manipulation. And so that is one thing you got to watch. Again, every situation is different. Yeah, totally. You want to do one more question, babe? Sure. Is it possible to have a soul tie with someone you've known forever but never had sex with? That sounds more like an emotional tie or connection that you might have with that person, right? It sounds about right. I feel like they might have an emotional connection with that person. And so I remember I had emotional connection one time with somebody and never did anything physical with him. But I had an expectation that one day there might be a future because he would give me lip service and tell me all these lies of how we're going to be together, we're going to be married and all this stuff. And nothing happened physical, but he gave me a lot of empty words. And when he started dating other women in front of my face at church, exactly. I was upset, but then I realized he gave lip service to not only me, but all the other women around me. Mm. And so I got very frustrated, and it took me a long time to get over that. I had to stop hanging around him and even our friends at church for a season because I was very hurt by that. So I'm thinking that's the perspective she's coming from. Yeah. So when that happened to me, I pulled away and stopped hanging out with the group with males and females because there was a big group of us that hung out. I stopped hanging around him. and I just hung out with my friends. And I really just forgave him. The Bible says that how can God forgive us if we cannot forgive other people? So I knew I needed to let him go. And not only that, I knew my worth. I was like, first of all, I'm fine. I look good. I love Jesus. I serve. I got a job.
Oh, my mama.
Come on. Come on. I knew I looked good. I was like, I don't need no issues.
Good. My swag.
Wait, what song is that? What?
It's a
Is that a Christian
Hillsong
song?
Yeah, go ahead. Don't worry about it. CCM.
I don't know.
Really
I don't know if that was a Jesus song.
No,
but I really knew my worth. So I said, if you don't see my worth, I do.
Yeah.
And if you don't, somebody else will.
Come on, because value doesn't beg.
Come on. I wasn't about to beg.
And value doesn't go on sale either. A Rolls Royce ain't going to go on sale just because you can't afford it. You're going to have to come up on your coins if you want to get it. A Rolls Royce makes you come up to get it. It won't come down to get you. Eto Yama.
That's right, baby.
Come on.
That's
Yadama.
Right. That's right.
Yakahama.
So I knew who I was. And so I refused to let his rejection or disapproval of me change who I was. I knew I was a bomb, and I knew one day I was going to be a great wife.
.com.
Come on, baby.
.org.
.edu.
Come on. .us. .ca. Come on.
And now I'm the one that got away. I'm the one that got away. Yo bad, brother. Yo bad, brother.
Yo bad.
So instead, I would just let Birdie fly. And forgive him. All of that.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, no matter, if you are single, you feel dissatisfied, then you have to understand that your dissatisfaction is coming from a very insecure place.
Yeah.
And one of the four things that we as humans, that we desire more than anything, we desire acceptance, we desire security, we desire approval, and then we desire for somebody who's going to really want us. So you got to figure out where that place of insecurity is coming from, and you got to know that is not what God desires for you to have. And if you are lonely and you are bored because you're single, find you something to do. You need to get busy about serving him and not about thinking that marriage is your diploma for being single.
In the book of John, it says that the Holy Spirit is our advocate, and he's close to us and he never leaves us. So that always gives me hope in knowing that I am never alone. Whether I'm single, whether I'm married, I am never alone. And God is with me, and I have an advocate that lives on the inside of me that will help lead me and guide me. So we love you guys.
We love y'all so much. Thank you so much for tuning in again with Life with the Lindseys. Can't wait to join you for our next episode.
Yes, make sure you subscribe, download, tell all your friends, your cousins, aunties, whoever, to make sure they subscribe too. Love you guys.
Bye.